What are you doing in my swamp?
Hello everybody, this is Ogre Boy, and I'm going to be doing my review for the 1953 movie Peter Pan. So in this movie, the darling children Wendy, John, and Michael follow Peter Pan to Neverland, where they have all kinds of fun adventures with the Lost Boys, getting into all kinds of shenanigans, and they have to help Peter face off against Captain Hook, who wants to rid Peter Pan of Neverland forever. This movie's pretty good for the most part. I've always really liked this one. It's been one of my favorites since I was a kid. There are things that haven't aged well in this movie, though. Mainly the depiction of Native Americans and stuff. They are stereotypical caricatures of Native Americans, and it really has made the movie age poorly and stuff. I wanted to just get that out of the way. I acknowledge that part of the movie is not very good, and I don't like the "What Makes the Red Man Red" song. I never have liked that song. Even when I was a kid, I never liked it. As a kid, I just thought the song was not very entertaining and kind of boring, but rewatching it now as an adult, it's even worse than I remembered. But I did want to acknowledge that part before I got into the rest of the review, because for the most part, I love this movie. It was one that I watched as a kid, and I have this saying that even if some things don't age well, a lot of things that I watched as a kid I still love and everything. It's just part of the nostalgia, I guess. I don't know, but this is one that I have a lot of nostalgia for, although I personally prefer the second movie, Return to Neverland, which is the only one out of those cheapos that they made in the early 2000s that I think is better than the original. I actually think I reviewed it earlier this year for its 20th anniversary, but I think Return to Neverland is a lot better than this one, but this one is still really good. The story in here is great. I've always loved the story of Peter Pan. I've always found it to be very fascinating and stuff. As a kid, I always dreamt about going to Neverland and stuff, and I went through a big Peter Pan phase when Return to Neverland came out, so I watched this one a lot already when I was younger and stuff, and then when that one came out, I watched this one even more and everything, and I've watched it quite a bit throughout the years, and I gotta say, for the most part, it's a pretty good movie. The animation is gorgeous and holds up really well. That's one thing I can say that it does hold up really well as far as animation goes. Some of the best that Disney Animation Studios gave us back in those times. And the voice cast is really good in here. Bobby Driscoll is as Peter Pan is just absolutely perfect as a character, and he was also notably one of the first guys to ever play Peter Pan, because most of the time he's played by girls in the plays and stuff, so I think this might be the very first time a guy played Peter Pan, but I'm not 100%. And I think that the other voice cast members are great too. Catherine Beaumont, who did the voice of Alice in Alice in Wonderland, does the voice of Wendy, and even though she sounds exactly the same because it's the same actress, there's such a difference between Wendy and Alice and everything, and she brings both of the characters to life in totally different ways, and I think she did a really great job as Wendy. And then you have Bill Thompson as me. He also did the voice of the White Rabbit in Alice in Wonderland, I believe, but he also worked on a lot of other Disney movies, I think. He was one of their good luck charms for a while. And I really liked him in this movie. It's the voice of Smee. It's one of my favorite characters of his and everything. I've always found Smee to be really likable and funny and everything. He's always been one of my favorite characters. I always kind of felt bad for him because the way Captain Hook kind of treats him, he kind of treats him like a jerk and everything, like a lot of the Disney villains do to their sidekicks and everything. But Smee has always been a likable character to me. And speaking of Captain Hook, he's easily, hands down, one of my favorite Disney villains, for sure. I absolutely love Captain Hook. He always has been one of my favorite villains. And I noticed this time in this movie, I actually kind of feel bad for Captain Hook, especially in that scene when he's like, blast good form, did Peter Pan show good form when he cut off my hand and stuff? And he's like, it was just a childish prank, but he's like, yeah, throwing it to the crocodile and stuff and having it after me ever since. It's like, you kind of feel bad for him and stuff. Like I mean, I know Captain Hook isn't necessarily a good character and stuff, but Peter cutting off his hand is a good way to make him want to have vengeance on him and stuff. So he has good motivations and stuff, but this movie has some of the best slapstick comedy with the villain. Like, there's times where he is intimidating and stuff, which is really cool, but he's at the end of the day just this really big coward, and he's terrified of this crocodile, which that part I don't think he's a coward on, because if I had a giant crocodile after me, I'd be scared too. But the way he screams and stuff, and he's screaming for Smee every 5 minutes, I've always loved that scene and just found it to be really, really funny, and everything. In fact, they kind of poked fun of it in the 2003 version of Peter Pan and everything, where he's calling for Smee, and Smee is like, it's kind of sad, isn't it? And he looks to the camera. I always love that scene in that movie because of this one. And that one wasn't even a direct remake of this one. We're getting that one sometime next year, the Peter Pan and Wendy live action version from Disney. And I'm looking forward to that one. I know they're going to be changing a lot of stuff that needs to be changed and stuff. Like I said, the natives in this movie, they could have found better ways to write those characters. The way they did it just was not very well done. And the character of Tiger Lily is just there as a damsel in distress. She doesn't add anything to the story or anything. So, like, in the scene when Wendy is jealous of Tiger Lily and stuff, it doesn't really add that much of an emotional punch. It's more amusing than anything. But yeah, and I gotta say, Peter is not near as likable of a character as I remembered him to be, which I always did kind of think he was a little bit of a jerk in the first one, the way he gets mad at Wendy for wanting to go back home and everything. He just kind of acted really immature in the first one. That's one thing I liked about the second movie more and everything, is Peter wasn't as big of a jerk, but I still like the character enough in this one. And like I said, this is just a really fun movie from Disney Animation Studios. There are, like I said, there's things about it that have not aged well, but the rest of it is really great. And to me, the good outweighs the bad and everything. The native segments are mostly fit into one part of the movie, and you can kind of skip over it if you have to and everything. But yeah, this movie is pretty good. I enjoy it for the most part and everything. Like I said, I do have my issues with the stereotypical stuff that they do in here that was not right at that time, and definitely isn't right nowadays. It really has aged the movie poorly, but aside from that, it's a pretty good and entertaining movie. And I've always loved the fun adventure feel of Peter Pan, and that's why I think I've always loved the story, is just the adventure aspect of it. And it's not just in this version. Any version of Peter Pan has a fun adventure feel to it, that all the ones I've seen anyway. So I'd say I'd give this one an 8.5 out of 10. This one probably would have actually had a 10 out of 10 if it wasn't for the stereotypes and stuff that's in this movie. If they would have kept that stuff out of it, this one would be a full 10 out of 10, because I do love it for the most part, and my childhood nostalgia can't fully get rid of all the love I have for this movie, just because some of the stuff has aged terribly. I try not to let stuff like that ruin the movie. It is what it is. It's not right, but it was part of the time it came out in and everything. So but I acknowledge what they did in here wasn't right. But yeah, so anyway, let me know in the comments what you think of Peter Pan, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a good day, everybody.